damn good day. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today we will be discussing Real Madrid's official new tactics. Of course, the 4-1-2-1-2 formation. Now, of course, with the previous video I did make, I kind of expected them to go with a front two, of course, but I wasn't sure what that midfield would look like. So I went with a flat 4-4-2 formation, and it wasn't actually that. It turned out to be more or less the diamond in the midfield. So I was wrong. I hold my hands up, but those tactics are still banging, and they are still something I think Real Madrid will use. And I mean, we have seen Carlo Ancelotti use those set of tactics before with the likes of Benzema and Vinicius up front, Valverde on the right hand side, of course. So it did work in the past, but this is more or less the realistic tactics that I've seen Carlo Ancelotti employ, or however you want to put it. He is using them this season, of course, with Vinicius and Rodrigo up front, of course. So without further ado, let's hop on into it. Of course, the 4-1-2-1-2 formation. Of course, up front we've got Vinicius and Rodrigo. We've got Bellingham just in behind. A very interesting role. I didn't expect him to be playing like in that super advanced role, but you know what? I do like it for him. I can't lie. And we've got Camavinga and Valverde on either side of the likes of Tchouaméni. Of course, we've got Carvajal, Rudiger, Alaba, and of course Garcia. Fantastic right back, fantastic left back, by the way. And then of course we've got the new guy, goalkeeper, of course, Kepa, as the likes of Courtois has torn his ACL, which is very horrific, to be honest. And then we've got Joselu on the bench, Ceballos, Modric, Kroos, Lunin, Fernandes, and of course Mendy. Of course, this man must be absolutely fuming. He's like, okay, so it's unfortunate Courtois tore his ACL. It's my time to shine. Perez was like, hold my beer. Anyways, he's still going to be the backup reserve man. And then of course we've got Vasquez, we've got Odriozola, Brahim, and of course we've got the injured triple here, all ACL injuries or knee injuries. We've got Militao, we've got Gula, we've got Courtois, and then of course we've got a few other players as well. Now, just having a look at the formation, of course, it's obviously one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, one DM, two central midfielders, one cam, and then of course two strikers. So as for the tactics, of course, it is set to press after loss of position. Of course, that midfield, middle of the park area is very, very packed. I mean, you've got some insane, elite, athletic talent there. So, more or less going with the press after loss of position, you'll be pressing a lot higher up. Of course, you've got pacey frontmen and the likes of Vinicius, Rodrigo. Of course, Joselu isn't the fastest, but he can press quite well, quite aggressively as well. So you will look to try and press the back line of the opposition and try and squeeze them into their own half, more or less inching yourself further and further up the field, which is why the likes of the depth is set to 80. But in terms of the width, I went with this because obviously it's a very young midfield. Of course, when you've got Kroos and Modric in there, maybe you would like to drop it a little bit more, make it a bit more like a more unit-shaped formation, where you have them a bit more compact, but closer to each other. When in terms of pressing, you can do it as a better unit because there's not as much stamina exerted. But with the likes of Tchouaméni, Valverde, of course Bellingham and so on, you will have a very young team in the middle of the park. So having that one-to-one man marking system does help a lot, and it does take the opposition far out of the game. So in terms of that, that's why I went with the 50. And we have seen time and again that Ancelotti, he likes a very aggressive midfield system, and that's why he loved the likes of Casemiro in the midfield. But with this, I think it works out very well, especially with that midfield diamond. As for the build-up play, it's set to a balanced attack. Of course, Ancelotti, he doesn't mind his team's counter-attacking, winning the ball back, and then hitting the counter-attack, but at the same time, he does like a bit more control in the game. And when you have the likes of Tchouaméni and Bellingham and so on in the midfield, it does help a lot with being able to just calm the game down a bit, but also you do have that elite ability to just hit a ball in over the top for running on Vinicius or Rodrigo. And then, of course, chance creation is set to possession. Of course, it's Real Madrid. They like to impose themselves on the game, have the ball for majority of the game, and also you want to try and create a steady build-up play throughout the thirds of the field, of course. And then as for the width, it's set to 65, and the main reason for doing this was because it's a diamond. You want to try and stretch out a bit more and get the likes of Valverde and Camavinga slightly wider in order for the likes of Bellingham to drop into that midfield, help out, of course, pick up the ball, and also just more or less stretch the offense. The opposition's defense, going forward. And then as for players in the box, it's set to 8, so you want the likes of Bellingham, who will be playing just behind Vinicius and Rodrigo. You want him to more or less bomb on into the box along with your fullbacks. Of course, Fran Garcia and Danny Carvajal, they will be very advanced in this situation. So that is also another reason why you also want the likes of Valverde and Camavinga to be slightly wider, so that they can also help cover for those players that when they do bomb on forward, there is coverage in those wider areas. And then, of course, as for corners and free kicks, it is set to 4. Starting off with the instructions, of course, starting off with Kepa, it's a very realistic thing, but setting him to cautious with crosses does make sense. I've never seen Kepa claim a cross in my damn life, but it's always because he punches the balls that come into the box. So he's not the most aerially commanding goalkeeper, and that's more or less what you're going to get from him if you're a Real Madrid supporter. And then, of course, he is fairly good with the ball at his feet, so he can fulfill that role. And, of course, when you do play a high line, which this team and this set of tactics will implore, you do want a goalkeeper to be able to run off his line, collect the ball, pass it off, find diagonal passes, of course, and just to be more or less be that 11th player on the field that you can actually use, opposed to a stick man between the sticks that's probably not going to do much. As for Alaba and Rudiger, they are set to their base set of instructions. And then, of course, as for your fullbacks, they are set to the same set of instructions as well. Join the attack and overlap, and of course stick to position. Now, the main reason for this is you do want them to be able to hold the width of the team. You don't really want them stepping out of position or anything like that, but you also want them to be more or less an outlet ball on that wider side, or that wide channel, in order to try and stretch the play, stretch the offense, create little pockets of space for the likes of Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde, and of course Bellingham to function in that midfield. Because obviously, if they're not bombing on forward, it just allows the defense, the opposition's defense, just to swarm that midfield and then overcrowd it, and then it just becomes a very messy situation. But if you have the two fullbacks bombing on, creating space, pulling players out of positions, creating little pockets around them, it does help the midfield function quite a bit. And as you can see for Danny Carvajal, that is his set of instructions right there. So you do want them firing crosses into the box a fair amount. They will be the guys who predominantly cross the ball in this team. And then moving on to Tchouaméni, of course, he is set to cut passing lanes, stay back while attacking, normal interceptions, cover the centre, and then, of course, be the deep line playmaker. Of course, he's more or less going to be employed in that middle of the park role, just to sweep up, collect, and move on. Of course, him and Camavinga will interchange positions from time to time. I know I have set him to stay back while attacking, but he will also look to sometimes get forward when Camavinga does drop into that DM role. And speaking of Camavinga, he is set to have a balanced attack, stay on the edge of the box, aggressive interceptions, of course, drift wide, and then, of course, cover the wing. So he will look to cover the likes of Garcia, and that is also why we have gone with a 65 width offensively wise, so that he can be slightly wider and also help the likes of Garcia offensively wise as well. And then, of course, aggressive interceptions makes the most sense. You want your midfield to run the opposition's defense and offense and everything ragged, and you want them to be as aggressive as can be. And then as for Valverde, similar set of instructions as well. Balanced attack, stay on the edge of the box, aggressive interceptions, drift wide, and of course cover the wing. Very much likewise for this side of the field as well. You want him to be able to cover Carvajal. You also want him to more or less try and retain possession with the likes of Tchouaméni, Camavinga, and of course Valverde, as well as Bellingham. You want them to try and rotate position a fair amount and just have it ticking over, making sure that the offense is working quite well, but making sure that the opposition is having to work extremely hard in order to win that ball back. And then as for Bellingham, I've set him to come back on defense, get into the box, free roam, of course, and then normal interceptions. Now, the main reason for having him come back on defense was because in a lot of the things that I have seen from Bellingham, he does drop very deep into that midfield, creating huge overloads, drawing out the opposition, of course, because now it's just Vinicius and Rodrigo up front, but then, of course, they're also tending to drift a bit wider, so the centre-backs don't really know who to mark. And that's a very nice problem to have if you're Real Madrid, because then it just allows other players just to slot into those areas. And also, it does allow him to create overloads in the midfield, creating an extra body. More passes can be fired within that section, and of course, that is why I've gone with the free roam ability for him, because he will show in little pockets of space in and around the opposition's box. And now we get to our two strikers, Vinicius and Rodrigo, Brazilian superstars, you could say. We'll start off with Rodrigo. He is set to drift wide, getting behind, aggressive interceptions, and of course stay forward. So more or less, you want him to be that out there ball, but you also want him to also be able to press from the front, like I said earlier. You want them to more or less push the opposition into their own box, and you want your back line to more or less inch up the field further and further, creating a very strong, compressed opposition. And also, you want the likes of Rodrigo stretching the opposition's defense by getting in behind, making angled runs into the box, outside of the box, of course, just arcing his runs a bit more, along with the likes of Vinicius, who will more or less look to do the same. He's set to drift wide, get behind. Normal interceptions will be on, and then of course he was also looking to stay forward. So more or less Rodrigo will look to try and implement the press, with Vinicius more or less following suit, but not as much. And then of course you'll have your aggressive midfield in and behind. But more importantly, you do want Vinicius to try and stretch the defense as well. Both of these players are set to have drift wide on and getting behind. So the centre backs will more times than not be left very much isolated in the middle, not knowing exactly who to mark, because Bellingham will also look to drop deeper, so they won't know if they should follow the likes of Vinicius, they should follow the likes of Bellingham or Rodrigo, and that does open up loads of space for the likes of a Valverde, Tchouameni or Camavinga to bomb on into that central area, of course. So yes, this is my set of tactics for Carlo Ancelotti's 4-1-2-1-2. If you have enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up. If you haven't, thumbs down. Don't mind, it is what it is. I can't control you. But more importantly, if you have enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button if you are new. And of course, we are so close to 1,500 subscribers. It is unflippin' believable. If you can subscribe, add to that, that would be fantastic. But more importantly, guys, until the next video, till the next time, I hope you have a damn great day. I am out.